Hello everyone. Thank you for coming. I'm Justine Simons. I'm the Head of Culture for the Mayor of London. And on behalf of the Mayor of London, I'm really delighted to welcome you all to the London Media Centre today. So today is a very important day. 12 world cities have joined forces to launch the World Cities Cultural Report, which is the biggest international survey of its kind. Ordinarily, cities measure themselves in terms of finance and growth. But instinctively, we all know that great world cities have great culture at their heart. Imagine any of these cities represented here today without film, without theatre, without live music, without art galleries. Or put another way, by the artist Grayson Perry, who says, life without art would be a series of emails. So culture is a big reason that people choose to live and visit cities. In London, we know that 7 out of 10 people come to our city because of our cultural offer. It's also what makes them distinctive. So increasingly, our airports are looking the same, our coffee shops are looking the same, but culture gives us our distinctive character. But until now, we have not really known much about this in a comprehensive, detailed way. So today is a big moment, as we're launching the most detailed and wide-ranging report into culture in world cities. So we know how many books get borrowed, we know how many theatres get attended, we know how many Michelin-starred restaurants get eaten in. A whole range of stuff, and some quite surprising things too. But to be clear, today is not about competition. Today represents a great collaborative effort by all the cities. We have a great deal to learn from each other. And we are planning to build fruitful relationships well into the future. In fact, when we leave the Media Centre today, we're going back to City Hall along with another 100 delegates from across the cultural sector in London to talk more in detail about the summit, its findings, and where we might go next. So to give you a bit more detail about the summit and the findings, I'm going to hand over to the author of the report, Paul Owens.
Good morning. Thank you very much, Justine. It's a great pleasure to be here to present our exciting report. I'm going to say a few words about the report, and then I'm going to ask our colleagues from the individual cities to make a few remarks. Just a little bit about the background. We originally did a version of this report back in 2008, and that was a very important contributor to the thinking behind the Mayor's cultural strategy, which was published a few years after that. And one of the reasons why we decided to pull together a kind of compendium of data like this was partly out of frustration with the sort of existing world city rankings that get published, and there's a proliferation of those, and many of you will know about those. And what we found is whenever we looked at those as a way of doing a comparative study of culture, there were always very, very few indicators about the cultural life of those cities, even if those rankings were dealing with quality of life issues or branding or image issues. We would never find more than about half a dozen indicators. So we thought, well, the data's available in many cases, and let's work to try and pull it together. So what we've arrived at is a compendium and a sort of a collection of data with 60 data points on each of the cities. And we think that's unprecedented in its breadth and its depth. And basically those indicators break down into two sorts. There's a set of indicators about what we call the sort of cultural production capacity of the city, which is, its theatres, its performing groups, its dance groups, basically the ability to actually make and put on culture. And that's one side of it. And then we also have a set of indicators around cultural consumption, in other words, what people are actually going to see, what they're reading, what they're doing in their spare time. Alongside those, we have a number of indicators around what we call sort of buzz and diversity, and those are things like numbers of nightclubs, numbers of bars, and that sort of capture a bit more of the kind of informal, buzzy life of the city. So as I say, we think it's probably the most comprehensive survey of its kind. And I think the other distinctive thing about this report is that it's a genuine collaboration between the cities. We were asked as a consulting firm originally to work on behalf of the Mayor of London, and we brought each of these cities in individually, and we worked with them on scoping out the indicators, on digging out the data. And as you'll see from the report, we've pulled together a sort of a short, snappy narrative about what's going on in each city at this exact moment in time. And I just want to emphasize what we see is sort of a couple of the key messages that are coming out of the report. And I'm just going to pick up on some of the stuff that Justine said. I think what the report shows without a doubt is just how important world cities are as platforms of cultural production and consumption. And that is true across the board and across the indicators. There are great differences in variety between the cities. I mean, so for example, London, because of its kind of history and heritage, is very strong on museums. London has over 1,000 museums, and that's part of its ability to attract over 15 million visitors every year. New York's very, very famous for Broadway. New York has over 400 theaters putting on over 43,000 performances every year. That's an astonishing figure. If you look at Istanbul, an incredibly dynamic young city, but also a city known for its heritage, has over 30,000 heritage sites. Shanghai, a fascinating city, growing incredibly fast, publishes the most number of books. Tokyo has scores high on many, many indicators, has particularly high on video game arcades and on restaurants. And then a city like Sydney, which is a relatively small Sydney, has over 300 festivals, which is a very, very high number of festivals for a city of its size. So I think the point about the report and the data is that these world cities do well across all the indicators. Some do better than others, but they score well on all the indicators, and that's just a sign of the sheer breadth and depth and vitality of what they're doing as far as culture is concerned. And the second main point I want to make is that cities increasingly recognize that culture is a hugely important part of their future social and economic success. And if you read the narratives that we've produced for the cities, you'll see that all of these cities are increasingly looking for smart new strategies on how they can bring public and private and voluntary efforts together to develop and grow their cultural sectors. And sometimes that's about trying to harness culture for the good of sort of economic goals. But sometimes actually it's about more intangible things. So there are some interesting stories in our report about how the cities have worked with culture to respond to disasters such as the great Japan East earthquake or 9/11. And I think that intangible part of culture and its ability to capture the hopes and dreams of the people of a city is a really important part of the story as well. So that's just a general overview about what we've found and the messages coming out of the report. I'm now going to ask each of my colleagues from each of the cities to just say 2 or 3 minutes worth of remarks before we open up for a Q&A. I'm going to start off with Munira Mirza, who's commissioned the report originally, and who's the Deputy Mayor for Education and Culture here in London. Munira.
Thank you, Paul. I'd like to start, first of all, by saying a huge thank you to all the cities that participated in making this report happen. It's been amazing to work with so many colleagues from around the world and to share their ideas and their thoughts. And I can speak on behalf of my colleagues in London that we've learnt a great deal already about what our cities have in common, not just what separates us, but the many challenges and opportunities we face together. And I think that we've gained a great deal from this and want it to continue. The premise of the whole report, as Paul and Justine have already said, is to make the point that culture is vital to the success of any city. And in London, this is something that we say all the time. I've given countless number of speeches in the last 4 years talking about the importance of culture and why it's crucial for our economy, for our tourism, for our quality of life. But the great thing about this report is that it gives us real concrete evidence to make that case and to make that point. There's always a risk in any city or any country that you create a myth about what makes your country unique and special. And we are very conscious not to try and sound arrogant about London. We are a great capital of culture. We are historically a great capital. But this report also shows that there are many other great cities of culture around the world. And in some cases, when you look at the statistics, some really interesting and surprising facts. And it's certainly given us a lot to think about. I would say that the report makes some points which are really reassuring for us in London. Even though we are going through a major economic difficulties at the moment, London is still extremely strong on the cultural front. We do have 1,000 museums and galleries, we have 200 theatres, we have a huge, diverse cultural sector. and it's still attracting tourists from around the world. We're the world's most visited city, and culture has an important role to play in that. We also have an incredibly important international scene, more international students than any of the other cities that have been surveyed, more international film screenings than any of the cities surveyed. And I think that points to the cosmopolitan dimension of London, one of the things that makes us so successful and so open and welcoming to people from around the world. And you can see now, in the context of the Olympics in particular, we're holding the largest ever arts festival this city's ever seen, in fact this country's ever seen, the Cultural Olympiad and Festival 2012. And we're welcoming hundreds of artists, not just from Britain, but from around the world to be here. We're calling it a summer like no other. And it's been an incredible experience working collaboratively, not just with arts organisations from here, but from all around the world. Why are we so strong on culture in London? Why do we have this reputation? Well, we obviously have a strong history, and I think Danny Boyle's opening ceremony pointed to the incredible outward-facing nature of London, the fact that for centuries we've been a centre of commerce, of trade. We've been a nation of collectors. We love collecting things. All our museums, the Victorians were avid collectors of objects and ideas, but we're also a nation of inventors. The influence of other countries and other people has meant that we're always looking for change. There's a kind of constant revolution in London. And I can see the names of the engineers around the wall of this room: Brunel, Rennie, Murdoch. These are figures who transformed not just this city or this country, but the world. And I think that we have a long tradition of invention and ideas. But even more mundane than that, if you look at the last 60 years in Britain, the amount of investment that's gone on in culture, in our universities and colleges, our art and design sectors, through the National Arts Council, through local councils, through the Greater London Authority, the Mayor's Office and its predecessors, there has been a long-term investment in the foundations of culture. And so it's not just about a natural genius of the British or the average Londoner. It's not just innate talent. There is a very fundamental structure that underpins the culture and the creativity of the city. And I think the most important thing I would say is that even though this report talks about the economic importance of culture, its importance to well-being, the success of culture in London has been almost unplanned, almost by accident in a sense. The fact that it has this amazing contribution is not because somebody sat in a room or in a committee and said, how can we make culture serve the ends of the economy or create more revenue or GDP for Britain. It was because somebody somewhere had a brilliant vision or an idea for culture and wanted to do something with integrity. And I think my final point, and there are many things that I could say, I've only got 2-3 minutes. My final point is that we're all brought here today because we believe in culture as a thing in itself, for its own sake, as well as for all the many benefits that it brings. And the lessons that we've learned from this report is that London must continue to invest in culture, must continue to believe in it and experiment, to take risks, to value the institutions that have been created, to have more partnerships, more international links, and to see culture as a crucial part of the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Munira. So I'd now like to hand over to Kate D. Levin, who's the Commissioner, New York City Department of Cultural Affairs. Kate.
Thank you so much, and thanks also to our hosts here in London who've been so extraordinary to us. Culture is key to New York City's economy, identity, and quality of life. Economy through direct employment and supporting small businesses and the hospitality sector. Identity because it's the one signature industry New York City has that is in every single neighborhood, attracting great artists and great audiences and welcoming the 40% of New Yorkers who are foreign born. It's also central to our quality of life by providing extraordinary public and private investment in iconic buildings and wonderful public spaces throughout the city. Participating in this report is an extension of Mayor Bloomberg's commitment to learning from and sharing with other cities around the world in areas like public health, through our Global Cities Partnership, through environmental sustainability, and now through this report, through culture. It's a vital means of shaping our city, and it has been for the relatively short period of time, certainly compared to London, some of the other cities in this report, that New York City has existed. In the 19th century, Museum Mile really framed Fifth Avenue. In the middle of the 20th century, the creation of Lincoln Center created economic vitality in a whole nother swath of Manhattan. And more recently, the renaissance of the borough of Brooklyn as our hottest residential neighborhood has been done on the strength of its association with culture and creativity. Culture is also key to New York City's future as a home of technology and innovation. Talented workers feed off creativity of all kinds, and that's one of the main things that we know about artists and other creative people. They like to be with each other, and in an era of globalization, it is impossible to overstate the importance of a particular place for creative people to choose to live in. And finally, the World Cities Cultural Report is a wonderful first step for understanding how culture is key to great urban centers around the world, and begins an essential conversation among us all that we look forward to carrying on well into the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. And I'd now like to ask Mr. Yusaku Imamura to speak. He's Councillor on Special Issues to the Governor of Tokyo Metropolitan Government.
Thank you, Paul. So, attending the World City Culture Summit made me realize again that culture represents its society itself. The goal of cultural policy is not just to promote particular fields of arts and culture. Needless to say to today's audience, often culture is perceived as a decoration of life, as entertainment or hobbies. But the reality is quite opposite. Culture is the foundation of life and axis of where the society stands. So there are three key words when we talk about the characteristic of Tokyo's culture: dynamism, hybridity, and power of citizens. For example, the power of the citizens. A large number of Tokyo citizens are not only viewers or consumers, but creators of the arts as well. The extremely defined culture forged through these relationships heighten the quality of lifestyle for each citizen. In such a big dynamic city, the role of cultural policy by the public sector is challenging. We believe that the key strategies are nurturing emerging talents, collaboration and partnership between various sectors, and building a platform as a hub of international networking and collaboration. Tokyo thinks Cultural Olympiad is essential back to the original idea by Baron de Coubertin. As Tokyo, candidate city, we'd like to make meaningful cultural programs, as like London did, contribute to international citizens. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Imamura. So I'd now like to ask Professor Huang Changyong, who's from Shanghai Theatre Academy and our partner in Shanghai, and the director of the Metropolitan Cultural Audit Center at Shanghai Theatre Academy, to say a few words. He will be speaking through a translator.
非常荣幸能够参加这样一个报告的发布会。
I'm very honored today to attend this press launch.
我们作为上海的一家高校、一个研究机构来参与这个报告的撰写。
As a university and a research institute in Shanghai, we participated in the compiling of this report.
我们参与报告撰写的时候，得到了上海市政府有关部门的大力支持。
And we have received great support from the government agencies in Shanghai.
我想在这里向大家简单介绍一下上海目前文化发展的一个状态。
Here, I would like to briefly introduce the cultural situation in Shanghai.
大家知道，上海很早就提出建立4个中心，也就是经济、金融、贸易、文化、航运4个中心。
As you may have known, Shanghai has raised the objective to build itself into an international financial, economic, trade, and shipping center.
但近些年，我们一直在思考文化建设的重要性。
And in recent years, we have been thinking about the importance of cultural construction.
在去年11月，上海市政府正式提出了建设国际文化大都市的目标。
And in last November, the Shanghai government formally raised the objective to build itself into an international cultural metropolis.
非常明显，这样一个目标既有国际文化世界城市的一个参照，也有中国上海发展的一个特色。
And obviously, this objective combines both the reference to other world cities and also with the Chinese characteristics.
第二个方面，大家都知道，2010年上海成功举办了上海世博会。
And second, we all know that Shanghai has hosted the World Expo in 2010.
世博会最大的影响在于它的世博遗址的利用。
And the greatest influence after the World Expo is the reuse of the expo sites.
我们今天看到，在世博会这种处在上海市中心的地域，现在都是以文化建设作为重要的一个组成部分。
The Shanghai Expo happened in the most central part of Shanghai, and after the Expo, these venues has become important sites for the new culture initiatives.
有很多文化地标将在世博遗址建立。
A lot of cultural landmarks, new landmarks, are being built on the original Expo sites.
同时，我们看到迪士尼也已经落户上海浦东。
And we also have important, like this cultural sector, like Disney, located in Pudong district of Shanghai.
梦工厂也到了上海。
And we see that DreamWorks also enter into Shanghai.
第三个方面，上海一直在公共文化建设上，发挥很大的力气。
And third, Shanghai has put great efforts in the public sector for the promotion of culture.
近些年，我们在文化产业、创意产业上也给予大力的提倡和支持。
And the government has bring great promotion and support for the culture and the creative industries.
2010年，上海成为联合国创意设计之都。
In 2010, Shanghai joined the UNESCO Creative Cities Network as a city of design.
也在2010年，上海成立了一个组织——上海文化创意产业推进领导小组。
And in the same year, Shanghai has established Shanghai Culture and Creative Industries Leading Group.
目前，上海的文化创意产业发展非常的活跃。
And currently, we see a very active development of culture and creative industries in Shanghai.
我们制定了一个目标，也就是到2015年，文化创意产业要达到 GDP 的22%。
In our development goal, by the year 2015, the culture and creative industries will occupy about 12% of the total GDP of the city.
成为支柱性的产业。
And it will become a major supporting industry in Shanghai.
也就是我们注意到文化的发展在城市转型过程中的重要的作用。
That means we see the significance of culture in our transformation of urban development.
我们相信上海作为国际大都市，它的文化会发生越来越重要的作用。
And we believe that culture is playing an increasingly important role in Shanghai's metropolitan development.
谢谢。
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So next, I'm going to ask Professor Ahmet Bilgili to speak. He's the director of Istanbul Provincial Directorate of Culture and Tourism.
Thank you so much. I am very excited about this initiative. World Cities Culture Report has provided us a chance to learn more about each other and to see the position of our own cities within a culture-oriented global context. The strength of Istanbul in its cultural offer is its young and dynamic population, strong economic infrastructure, qualified human resources, pioneer status within the country, and the increased interest of its people. The basis of the energy of Istanbul is associating creative thinking with culture and arts and taking advantage of the inspiration of the city. Culture might be a source of conflict and integration. What we have to move from must be the integration power of the culture. Therefore, we do not focus on the content of the cultural activities of cities, but we focus on the power of culture to bring people together and the ability of realization cultural activities in the cities. We believe that the most important result of these cultural summits will be the opportunity to draw attention of politicians to the importance of culture for our cities. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. And finally, a few words, please, from Rachel Healy, who's the Executive Director of Culture at the City of Sydney.
Thank you very much. In addition to Australia surviving the GFC and being one of the strongest economies in the world, Sydney has significant natural and built assets, including its beautiful climate, spectacular harbour setting, outdoor lifestyle and relaxed outlook. The report shows it leads this group of cities in terms of the sheer number of events and festivals and the number of parks and gardens in the city. And in the midst of these cultural assets is the Sydney Opera House, one of the greatest buildings of the 20th century, a monument to human creative genius and ingenuity. The Sydney Opera House is a potent symbol of the many dividends that emerge from the work of artists and creative thinkers worldwide: economic returns, international reputation and competitiveness, civic pride, loyalty to place, and global distinctiveness. At present, all three tiers of government in Australia are developing new cultural policies and programs, so the timing of this audit could not be more perfect. Aside from the benefits of new networks and connections, the data that is revealed provides useful pointers that can inform new policies and initiatives. Even though Sydney is on the other side of the world, we can all be part of a global conversation about the role that culture plays in shaping and defining our cities and us as citizens. We want to thank very much to the Greater London Authority and to the Lord Mayor here for facilitating this work.
Thank you very much.